Hi friends of Jubilee Plus, and welcome to the first Monday Mercy of 2023. Just want to start by wishing you a happy new year. I have been really provoked at several points in the last year about the lens through which I see things, about my perspective, about whether I've got an eternal perspective or a very finite perspective, about whether I'm looking at things in the moment, in the snapshot of the moment, or about whether I am looking at the big picture and trying to have something of like a bird's eye view over it. And actually, I originally recorded this Monday Mercy in July, which seemed a funny time of year to do it. I even mentioned that in the original video. What a funny time of year to look back at the last 12 months. But at the time, I was really provoked because God had spoken to us as a Jubilee Plus team about the lens through which we see things, about trying to lift our gaze and trying to actually look from above and look down rather than just look from where we were at the thing right in front of us. And it was interesting, that came to us on a day of prophecy for the Jubilee Plus team. But God had been speaking to me a few days earlier from Joshua chapter 4 about the memorial stones. So in Joshua chapter 4, the people of God are at the River Jordan, and a bit like the parting of the Red Sea, or in fact exactly like that, God parts the waters so that they can cross to safety on dry land. But while the waters are still parted, God says, go back and pick up a stone for each of the 12 tribes and bring the stone out and set up a memorial. And this is like a reminder of what God has done. And back in July, I was really struck that God spoke to me about the way I was looking back over the previous 12 months of my life was not really with his perspective. See, I'd gone through a difficult time and I was looking back thinking, all I see is loss and pain and heartache and grief and mess, to be honest with you. And as I look back at that, I was missing so much of what God was doing in my life. And I felt challenged by God to write down 12 things that I was thankful for that had happened in the previous year. And do you know what really astonished me? Was that it was really easy. I thought it was going to be really hard. I thought I was going to have to wade my way through all of the painful things, all the things that I just found so upsetting and distressing and that had really hurt me. But actually, when it came to it, finding 12 things to thank God for came to me really, really easily. And so as I jotted them down, I thought, wow, I think I could keep going. I think I could write a lot more. But I stopped at 12 because I then started wanting to intentionally thank God for those things that he'd done. But the point was that actually with my focus at the time wasn't on those things. It was on painful things and messy things. And those things were real and those things were true, but they had kind of obscured my view of what God was doing. They'd obscured my view of all the wonderful things that I had to thank God for. And so my encouragement to you at the start of this year is to kind of do the same exercise that I did in the summer. And I'm doing it now as well at the start of the year, which is to look back and think, what are the 12 things from the last year that you can thank God for, that we can thank God for? And like I say, it's not to hide from the fact that there's been difficult things. I know for many of us, there'll have been some really hard things in the last year. For me, my year started out just really painful. But actually, one of the things that I've loved about the last 12 months is I felt like God is making me hyper vigilant for signs of him at work. So historically, I've been hyper vigilant for signs of rejection, for kind of signs that someone might abandon me or leave me. And so I've been praying, God, would you turn that around? And actually what I found is in his incredible kindness to me, God is making me someone who is actually hyper vigilant for signs of his mercy at work in my life every day. And it is such a joy. And it doesn't mean every day is easy. It really doesn't mean that. There have been some painful days in this last year, and I'm sure that's been the same for you. But as I've done this exercise of looking back, what are the 12 things that stand out to me that I want to thank God for? Like I say, it's actually come quite easily. And it's a really good exercise at shifting my gaze, on getting my perspective a bit more in line with God's perspective. Things I hadn't seen, I now saw more clearly. And it's left me, one of my favourite phrases, I've mentioned it in previous Monday Mercies in Mark 7, it's left me astonished beyond measure because Jesus does all things well. So I just want to encourage you to do something similar. And I just want to say Happy New Year, and I hope you have a good week.